Every new expansion comes with changes to the game, and while some new features are better than others, it's pretty undeniable that the new expansion is the most exciting time to play. I've gone over all the changes, big and small, that are coming to Dragonflight and came up with the best top 10 that I think are just really awesome. This list isn't going to necessarily be in order from best to worst, but I just wanted to compile everything into one neat and tidy package. Sound good? Alright, let's jump into the video. Firstly, I want to talk about the new interaction key. In Dragonflight, Blizzard has added a hotkey that allows us to interact with NPCs or objects in the world. We are all used to clicking on things to interact with them, but now in Dragonflight, you will have the option to walk right up to an NPC or objects and press a button to interact with them rather than clicking. I think this is a huge quality of life change for the game, and I didn't even know I needed this change until I started messing around with it in the beta. It feels like a really smooth addition to the game, and I'm really happy they decided to include it. On a side note, you can have some of the changes in the option menus basically have the interactable NPCs have an icon that is hovering over their head, so that way you always know which NPCs are interactable. It's really nice because the different NPCs will have different icons such as trainers or quest giver or someone that's going to be doing repairs. And it's really a smooth transition because it's not there, but as soon as you get up close to the NPC, the icon pops up over their head, so it's not really like super glaring. It's a really nice touch. The new UI changes to the game were listed as one of the big key features of Dragonflight, and it's pretty obvious that it was going to be on this list. I've always been a fan of not using a lot of add-ons, however, I always usually end up using things like LVUI because I just think that the default UI was just really outdated, and it needed a new change for the longest time. Now that Blizzard's decided to overhaul the default UI and give it a much needed renovation, it's probably been my favorite feature out of the expansion because now I'm really only going to be using just a handful of add-ons, and it's going to make everything a lot smoother and have a lot of less problems to deal with from conflicting add-ons. So with this next one, while it's a small change, I still think it's a really awesome addition to the game, and that's the hold to cast. In the settings, you can now choose to make your character just keep recasting the same spell over and over again as long as you're holding down the button. For example, if you're playing a Frost Mage and you just want to keep casting Frostbolt, you can literally just hold down the hotkey for that spell and your character will just keep casting that until you decide to take your finger off the key. One reason why I like this change is because it gets rid of any latency issues that you might have, or just make it so that you never lose that 0.1 second cast delay it takes to keep pressing the button. Either way, I just really like all of these simple yet impactful quality of life changes that are coming to the game. Professions have been a joke for a very long time in World of Warcraft. The last time that they really made an impact was in Legion. Since then, it's only existed to make gold, or I was literally just using alchemy so I had a longer flask duration, which is why the new profession overhaul is such a much needed breath of fresh air for the game. Now, if you've already watched my profession video, you know what's changing. I do think that there still needs to be some improvement with the other professions. As it stands, there's only a couple of professions that actually give you some really cool benefits outside of crafting, like blacksmiths giving the repair hammer, or engineers with all their amazing utility for pretty much any situation. I just would like to see them give some really compelling reason to choose every profession rather than just a couple. Another really nice quality of life change is the ability to have reagents stack up to 1,000, thus freeing up some much needed bag space. This is going to be great for just about anyone, but more specifically gatherers who don't want to worry about keeping lots of bag space when they go out to farm materials. No longer are you going to have a ton of slots in your bags to be taken up from reagents. Now, I don't know how many reagents this is going to work for. At the moment, it just looks like it's going to be some major ones like the ore and herbs. It'll be interesting to see what Blizzard plans to do with them and other items as far as stacking goes, but either way, I think it's a great change and another awesome addition to the game. Here's a scenario for you. You just died way out in the world and you get stuck in some place that's really far from a graveyard, or better yet, you've been corpse camped by some jerk on the opposite faction. So you stand there at the graveyard as a ghost looking at the spirit healer and click the spirit res. You get that 10-minute long debuff and decide to just log off rather than wait out the timer. Well, no longer is that timer going to be an issue anymore because now there's only going to be a 1-minute debuff for rezzing at a graveyard. The only downside to this is now you're going to take a 50% hit to your durability. But if you're a blacksmith, who cares because you have a repair hammer. And repair hammers will help you so that you never have to spend gold on repairs anymore. So I think this is a great change to the game, and I think it's going to help a lot of people and keep them retained in the game rather than just dipping out after they get res sickness. I also think it's going to open up some traveling opportunities now that we have a more viable means to transport around the world, granted if you know where the spirit healers are. And what's a top 10 list without the new dragon riding? This new way to fly in WoW has already made a huge impact on everyone who's played it, and I think it's one of those features that will just become part of the game going forward. With the way dragon riding works, it's almost as big as flying was when it first came out in the Burning Crusade. Only time will tell, but I think once everyone gets their hands on dragon riding, it's going to be hard for people to go back to the current version of flying that we've been used to for so long. I also think that dragon riding is a really great solution for mount collecting, because we have over 500 mounts now in the game, and back in vanilla WoW, when you got a mount, it was a really big deal. Back then, when there were so few mounts in the game, every single one of them was well known and a way for players to brag or show off their achievements. Now, unless it's a really cool looking mount, nobody even really cares. Mount collecting now is just about how many you have rather than which ones you've got. So I hope mount collecting and dragon riding style mounts will be a new way of basically resetting that and making obtaining mounts more impactful than they were before. A lot of players have been asking for a solution for obtaining conquest points in PvP, but not having to group up or join a pre-made. Well, now Blizzard decided to give us a solo shuffle, which is basically a soloable arena style mode where you can just go in and earn conquest points on your own time. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I still am more personally a fan of Battlegrounds. This might get some people upset with me, but I think Battlegrounds should be more of a focus of rated PvP rather than arenas. I think at some point in the future I might make a video on this topic, but for now, I will just be happy with this and call it a win. I know so many people, including myself, has always wanted to get into PvP, but the idea of finding a group when you have little to no experience is just been really hard, and it makes the entry barrier super difficult. So who knows, maybe with this new change, there's going to be more people jumping into the PvP ring. The new talent trees have been a pretty hot topic lately, with a lot of people thinking that they're really bad, but as someone who's been keeping up with them and watching a lot of Max's live streams where he's been talking to a lot of theory crafters, it seems like the talent trees are generally in a decent spot. I mean, granted, there are some specs or classes where, yeah, the tree does need help, but overall, if you're just looking at everything and taking a step back and looking at the big picture, talent trees are in a good spot. I think bringing back the old school style talent trees was a really great thing to do, and I think the old system that we've been using forever now just really didn't feel like a talent tree. You just pick from 3 choices as you go down this line. It was just very boring, but now we have the freedom of really trying out new ideas and fresh new builds for our classes. One really cool benefit from this is that the guys who run the website Raidbots basically said that it's going to be super difficult for them to make you sim your character. And the reason why I think that's a good idea is because, you know, now this whole simming your character, it's not going to be such a robotic thing anymore. It's not going to be so automatic. I think we're going to have to go back to the old days of just picking talents and trying to figure out what's good for ourselves and just beating on a target dummy for 5 minutes. And I do think that's a good thing because I feel like this game has just become way too automated, and yeah, it's just kind of taken the soul out of things. But who knows? I mean, I'm sure the guys over at Raidbots will probably figure out a way to do things for us, but at least for the moment, it's going to be kind of fun to, you know, go to the old school way of doing things. Our last item on the list is group loot. Blizzard is going back to group loot for raiding, and I can't be more happy about this change. I can't tell you guys how many times I've been in a raid where we kill a boss and someone doesn't need an item, but they can't trade it because it's a lower item level than what they've got currently equipped. Now, I understand why they did this change, but I think overall group loot is just way better. I know people who run pugs will most likely not like this change, but at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure if you ask what the loot rules are before you get into a group and then someone ninjas, you can just report them and get them banned for that. And look, yeah, I understand that some people don't have time to commit to being in a raiding guild, but, you know, if you're someone who can't do that, that's fine. But for the most part, just join a guild. Just get into a group, play with the same people. You're going to have way more fun in this game if you're playing with the same people. And then as far as the loot goes, this is just for raiding. Mythic Plus, you're still going to have personal loot. So there you have it. That's my top 10 features in Dragonflight. I know the pre-patch phase 1 just came out, and I'd love to hear from you guys and see how everyone's feeling about the pre-patch. And I'm curious to see which features you guys like. I know in the trade chat everyone's complaining about all this stuff, but you know, that's kind of expected. Yeah, and I know that right now the biggest ones is the UI and the talent trees. And I know it sucks that we have to wait another 3 weeks to actually get to play out the elemental event, you know, play the evoker class, try out the new dungeon, things like that. I would say just hang in there, guys. Either way, like always, thank you guys for sticking with this video until the end. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate all the feedback and support that you guys have given me so far, and with that, I will see you guys in the next video.